In this video, I want to talk about 5 important things that any budding gymnasts need to focus on if they are going to reduce their risk of injury. So firstly, if you're new to our channel, my name's John, I'm a sports injury therapist, and I recently have discovered a huge passion around gymnastics. Main reason being is I have a gymnastics mad daughter in the household, but now watching gymnastics constantly, I'm completely amazed by the things that gymnasts can make their body do. It's something I've always admired from far, but now looking at it much more closely. So what I want to talk about is the 5 key components that I think can help any gymnast to focus on to reduce their risk of injury. We're going to talk about things like upper limb mobility, upper limb stability, the good old core stability, lower limb flexibility, and also what we call ankle stability or proprioception. So stay tuned right to the end because you want to cover off all 5 of these areas to make sure we are reducing the risk of injury in this ultra cool sport. So let's dive straight in. And if we start off by working our way at top and we'll work our way down through the body. So first of all, if we talk about upper limb mobility, and if we take a simple gymnastic activity, a common activity, something like a backwards walkover, if we start to have a look at the shoulder and even doing a simple movement like a walkover, the amount of mobility that has to be available from that shoulder is going to be key. And if we're getting tight around those shoulders, not only are we going to have reduced performance, but we're also going to have a more higher risk of injury. So how can we check out whether we've got good shoulder mobility? Well, what I like to do is a test where I look to get to somebody to reach up their spine. So if we start on one side and reach up the spine with the arm as far as it can go, and you want to get that hand as far up that spine as possible, but particularly looking to get at least halfway up the shoulder blades or maybe further beyond. But importantly, what we tend to find in this test is that one side might be better than the other. So again, if you find that on one side, when you then repeat this test on the other side, it's much more restricted, that's an example that we might be actually having some shoulder mobility issues here, and that's something we can look to correct. So how do we look to correct that? Well, we can use this test and turn it into a bit of a stretch, and actually it's a stretch that I think any gymnast should be doing all the time anyway to increase this shoulder mobility. But you can take something like a towel or a pole and put that over the shoulder. I call this the over the coat shoulder stretch. Imagine throwing a coat over the shoulder. Then grab hold of that towel in a comfortable position with the arm that you're looking to stretch. And then what you want to do is pull up with the other hand. And you'll be pulling that arm up until you feel that stretch in the back of the shoulder. And it's a really good way. If you hold this stretch for about 30 seconds and you do this daily, you'll start to see improvements in that shoulder mobility. But we know we want flexible shoulders. But what I also want to think about is the importance of shoulder stability as well. And if anything, this is perhaps even more important. Again, I'm completely astounded at the amount of stability that is required out of the body in these top gymnasts. But if we take an activity, if we think of a commonly seen activity like a round off back handspring, and we start to watch the amount of stability that is required through the shoulder, if we're going to be able to perform that exercise well, those shoulders need to be rock solid in their stability. And so any inadequacies in that stability, and that's going to leave more pressure on the shoulder and more likelihood of causing some upper limb injuries. So how can we start to test or work our shoulder mobility? Well, I like to incorporate certain activities like if we take a high press up, I call this a shoulder tap in the high press up. So what we're looking to do is get into that high press up or perhaps high plank position and lift one hand to touch the opposite shoulder. Now, what we want to do, the hand that's being lifted is not actually the side we're testing. We're testing the side that stays in contact with the ground, and we want to ensure that we can maintain that shoulder stability. And then we look to repeat on the other side. And again, are we getting wobbles at the shoulder? Are we finding it difficult to maintain that shoulder stability? That's an example that we might not quite be as strong as we'd like to be through those shoulders. I also have an exercise that I really like to do to work people's shoulder mobility, and I call it the 3 object grab. What we're looking to do here, again, we start from a high plank position and use any 3 everyday objects, light objects, anything that you might have around. And what you want to do is start with the object in between the hands in the high plank position, take one object out to one side, one object out as far in front of you as you can straight ahead, and one object as far out in front of you across the body using that one arm. Then go and bring those objects back. Now repeat that on the other side. And you'll realize it's actually a much more difficult exercise than it looks. You'll realize the amount of stability that's being required. By taking the 3 objects into 3 different directions, we're moving our body weight over that stable shoulder, and it becomes quite a workout. Does it prove more difficult on one side than the other? That's an indicator that we might be slightly weaker or have less shoulder stability on one side than the other, and it's a good exercise for you to be working on. Make those shoulders nice and strong, make those shoulders nice and stable, and you've got a great stable platform to be performing exercises like the round off or the back handspring off of. Next, as we move our way down the body, we're going to go right into the middle and that core stability. And this is why in your gym classes, you might be worked or seeing perhaps your child or loved one being worked in exercises that they don't enjoy as doing as much, things like planks and stuff, but they are designed to give us good core stability. Probably difficult to think of a sport more so than gymnastics where core stability is so important, but we want to be nice and stable throughout. Now, on my channel, I've got lots of videos detailing core stability in a lot more detail, but what we're looking to be able to do when we use our core stability is be able to control the spine. So the spine is our central hub for everything, and around it we have some key muscles, some deep muscles that's role is to stabilize the spine, so that when we're performing these activities with great speed and changes of direction and movement, the spine and our whole core is nice and stable. So an exercise like the plank is an exercise designed where the whole premise of the exercise is to keep the spine nice and stable. Now, if you've ever done a plank, you'll realize, particularly after a period of time, that becomes very difficult, and you feel those deep muscles starting to work because they're starting to tire, working hard to keep that spine still. And you might start to see people wobble or rock or drop that position to alter that spinal position. That's because they want to switch off those core muscles. But the key to doing a plank well is keeping that back nice and flat and firing those muscles so that they can become stronger. There's lots of other exercises that I like to do. Sometimes I call these exercises dead bugs or Supermans, where what we're looking to do from either a kneeling or high plank position is lift one arm or one leg. But the whole premise, no matter what we're doing with the arms and legs, is that we're keeping that back nice and still. We're trying to encourage the back to move, but the actual exercise is restricting that movement to use those core stabilizing muscles. So they get trained to be nice and strong, and then when you're flipping through the air, the spine is nice and secure. So moving our way down into those lower limbs. Now, again, what I do find working with gymnasts is they are often good at flexibility, but that's because it comes out of necessity. To be good at gymnastics, we know that we're going to need lots of flexibility around those lower limb muscles, those leg muscles. The amount of positions that we have to take ourselves in, it's kind of stating the obvious that we need to have lots of flexibility in order to achieve that. So again, I have videos on my YouTube channel, and at the end of this video, I'll link to a video which goes into some detail about the 5 key stretches that I think every young athlete should do. But in particular for gymnasts, I think some of the key ones might be looking around the quads, the hamstrings and the glutes. If I talk about those quickly, some of the quad stretches are quite nice and easy to achieve by laying on your front, bringing your foot up into the bottom. Now, if you've got good flexibility, you should be able to pull your foot so it touches the bottom. If you find that you're not able to get that foot to the bottom, or the leg starts to shake, that's an indicator that we're tight through that area. So that in itself is a good stretch to be doing every day for 30 seconds. With the hamstrings, we can just flip over onto our back, and what we want to do here is look to bring the leg up to straight. Now, this is a good test. This is one that I often find people might be a bit tighter in, because we should be able to achieve 90 degrees of hip flexion. So that leg should be able to go straight up. If it can't, it's an indicator that we might be tight in that area, and that's a stretch that we want to be doing every single day. Holding that stretch for 30 seconds, repeat that test a week or 2 later and watch those hamstrings improve, and as a result, watch the performance improve in the gymnastics environment. Again, the glutes. I often call the glutes the big bullies. They're our biggest, most powerful muscles. We want flexibility out of those things. So with this stretch that I sometimes call the figure 4 stretch, we just look to place one leg on top of the other. So we're bending the leg that we're looking to stretch to place it on top of the other thigh. We then lift that thigh up towards the chest and hold that position for about 30 seconds. You should be able to get the lifting leg to 90 degrees of hip flexion, so similar to those hamstring stretches. But if you find that stretch difficult, or the leg wanting to go back down towards the ground, that's an indicator that we're tight through the glutes. Those muscles that really control all of our lower limb activity, come into the back, they're a really important player that we're making sure that they are nice and mobile and flexible. So a real important few stretches to add into your daily stretching routine, holding each one of those for 30 seconds. And my final and fifth area to focus on for any budding gymnast is to have good ankle stability. We could think of this as balance, or the technical term we have around this is proprioception. And that's the ability, proprioception definition is the ability of knowing where we are in space. So what that means is, if you imagine standing on one leg, everything has to work together to make sure that you know to keep yourself still and not falling over. So we get messages to the brain visually, we get messages from what we call the receptors in our muscles of working to keep us still. So again, you might remember that when people say to keep your balance, pick an object and stay looking at it, all you're trying to do there is show your brain where you are in space so it can help with the proprioception. However, if you're flipping through the air in a movement like a no-handed cartwheel aerial, then it can be difficult to know where the body is in space. So when we land, we want those ankles to be as strong as possible, our proprioception to be as high as possible, bulletproof to not only nail that landing, but also to reduce the risk of injury upon the landing. So what's great about this is that I take the exercise of cleaning our teeth as a great way to boost our ankle strength and do as a rehab exercise. Great because we're doing it daily, every day, and also because it gives us this balance challenge. So we can do this by just trying to clean our teeth while standing on one foot. So instantly by going onto one foot, we're getting that balance challenge, but as we go through the process of cleaning the teeth, that movement of our center of gravity means that it becomes quite a hard workout for the ankle. So I always encourage people to start off by holding on to something like the basin, then to try it taking their hands away from the basin, and if that becomes easy and you can do that nice and easy and you want to carry on boosting that workout, do it with your eyes closed as well. Take away that visual stimulation, watch how hard those ankles have to work. Ultimately though, helping you to stick those landings and reduce your risk of injury. I hope that that's been helpful for you. So that's my 5 tips of how any budding gymnast can look to bulletproof their bodies and prevent the risk of injury. So we discussed upper limb flexibility, upper limb stability, the all important core stability, lower limb flexibility, and also improving our ankle strength, and proprioception. If this content has been helpful for you, you can do me a favor and smash that like button, because that's going to help other gymnasts find these 5 areas and improve their performance and reduce the risk of injury. And as mentioned, I'll link now to that video that you can see here, which is a video all about the important tests and stretches to analyze any budding athlete's flexibility. I look forward to seeing you on another video.